Good morning, Warriors. Back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2, the 1% Club. And I'm going to do one today from Charles Peak. Charles, thank you. A shout out to you, my friend. A lot of discussion we have during the week kind of doesn't revolve a lot around the Lord and God. But Sunday being Sunday is the Lord's Day and day for worship and prayer and things that we need to do to kind of get ready for the week. I'm going to do one, I think, every Sunday. Try to do one related more to God and to relationship with semen retention and discipline, all those type of things. And I'm going to try to focus on that once a week to kind of give you guys a chance to kind of get a different perspective from me and on this type of thing when it comes to the spirituality of things. All right, so go ahead, subscribe, like, comment, please. Go ahead and do all those things. We're moving ahead. We're getting closer to 800, I think it is, when it comes to subscribers. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I feel very blessed about that. And certainly the likes, comments, you guys have given me like 25, 30 different topics to kind of focus on. So that'll keep me busy for the next month and a half or something like that. So very good, very good. All right, so Charles' comments, he was talking about going, this whole process really kind of focuses on going from your ego to a very spiritual type of thing in which you're focusing on God. And I think there's a very important point here that Charles mentioned. And as we do this, I want to kind of talk about how the relationship goes, as he's exactly right about this, going right from your ego to more of a spiritual nature. Now, that's kind of what I was looking to do many, many years ago when I started this whole thing about in the Fountain of Youth. And I really thought there was more to life than just going around and, entertainment and pleasure, eating and working. And even though family and kids are a wonderful thing, I was always kind of looking for something more than that, something more in life than just that type of thing. And there has to be more to life. And so the search has been on for many, many years. And in late 1990s, I found the Fountain of Youth, which kind of got me moving in the right direction. And I think the Lord has kind of given me steps to kind of see this as I've gone along and different challenges to kind of overcome as this has happened. But the idea that you really we are socialized. And I think if I want to go back to when we're born, there's a lot of research that shows that children, when they're born, and I don't have any memory of this, of course, but really are related to God. And this is why women are a lot closer to God than a lot of men are, because they've given birth, and so they understand that relationship and that energy process that occurs when you have a child. But there's a close relationship when that happens, and a lot of young children don't really know the difference between black or white or problems or males and females, all that kind of stuff. It's not until we become socialized, and as Sigmund Freud's talked about, we become socialized, we develop different egos, and then the ego comes into play. Now, whether the ego is the evil one, kind of moving us in a direction, I think he plays off of the ego. He knows that we are ego-based driven people because we're socialized that way. It's almost like a clean slate. As you're born, you have God and you know all of that, but then as time goes on, because everybody else in society has been moved in a different direction, we move away from the spiritual, godlike types of things for a short period of time. Now, if you're born in a family that's very religious and goes to church and really believes in God and those type of things, in relationship with God, you may not have as much of an effect with this. But a lot of children, as they're growing up, they have a lot of conflict because a lot of the kids that they run into in grammar school and high school, as you go through there, may not have the same type of beliefs or have any beliefs at all in God, because they're living for the world and they get tempted by all the things they see. So as they grow up, they get tempted by looking at things that are outside of the spiritual. So I think as people, we start to move away from the spiritual to the ego. And the ego is what kind of creates all these things, so-called needs and wants and pleasures and things like that. And so the whole idea is that we're born into a very egotistical world. It's all very much centered around you, yourself, and how you do things. And even giving the people is a tough thing. Now, when times are bad, we've had depressions in the history of the world. We've had, people be a lot of givers. They give because they realize that. They realize we need to be givers. When you have a lot more givers than takers, then you have a good society. When you have a lot more takers than givers, then your society falls apart. And that's what's happened to the Roman Empire and Babylon and all these Incas and all these Mayas, all these over the history of even the Tudors, English. You became greed hungry and the ego got too much the better of you. And that's what's happened in our world. This happens every 200-300 years in different dynasties, where all of a sudden the ego overtakes things. Once you have things pretty much peaceful and there's protection, you have enough soldiers, armies to protect you, and then you also have enough money coming in, then all of a sudden now the ego takes over, and now you're looking to massage the ego. This has been in our DNA in society for years, because we look at life as being very materialistic if you're in that world. And I think, as Charles mentioned, we are now moving out and with retention, moving back to the world we entered into. So this is a very fascinating type of discussion for me, and a topic for me, because Charles, I think, hit many good points when he talks about this. But when you're talking about ego, this is something that's developed when you're young. You don't even realize it. Most of us don't realize this. This is something that, once again, this is this matrix that we believed in. The matrix is this me generation. I grew up in the late 60s, and I grew up in, I was 8, 9, 10. I can remember a lot of things from the late 60s. And certainly the ego is one of it. It was a me generation, breaking away from the establishment and the elite type of thing, which, there was just justification for some of that. But what happened was it became so, me generation, individual, that all of a sudden people broke away from the whole idea. And I was way too young to understand any of that, what was going on. I just saw what was going on, and you become indoctrinated. And I think, once again, I have a lot of forgiveness for everyone. I don't judge anyone, because the bottom line really to me is that we can all be indoctrinated, depending on how we're born, what situation we're in, and how many times we hear that message going up. We could be very much materialistic, and I was younger, so I understand that. And so as you look at what happened when you're younger, you move from a point of view, in my case, moving all the way from, being into high school and thinking all these things about women, about money, and all these type of things. And, I did go to, Catholic CCD on the weekends, and I did go to church, with my family, but it was more of once again, not a relational thing with God, not a relationship thing with Lord Jesus Christ. It was more of a case of just going and making sure you went to church because, somehow that was the good thing to do, and to follow those rules. And I think there's a lot of people still doing that, going to church thinking that just because they went to church, this is their relationship with the Lord. And I think that I found that that's not really the case. In my case, that's the opposite. You're not really kind of following, once again, you're following to another one of those narratives or dynamics that people fall into, when they're kind of in that matrix. And if you remember the history a little bit here, guys, the history of the Roman Empire is it became the Roman Catholic Church. So if you think about that, the corruption is all over the place. And when we see stories now of corruption in the Catholic Church, and I've been a stout, Catholic and not Christian for many, many years. And so the thing is that it does bother me, but I think I understand it, because you're dealing with people. And whenever you deal with people, the evil one's always around. And there's going to be people who get, tempted in their ego to do a lot of things they shouldn't do. And so now we arrive at the idea of semen retention. And the idea is that you're tempted again to have pleasure. And the pleasure is telling you this is the way to do it. And so as time has gone on, the ego has gotten stronger and worse. And now you're in a situation where a lot of people have no spirituality at all. And so because of all the things they do in their day, they forget to actually go ahead and, pray or meditate and things like that. The relationship has to be between you and your God. And this is a personal relationship. No matter what happens, no matter, how many times you go to church, no matter how many times you read the Bible, you have to have that personal relationship with God. And I will be the first to admit there's many times that I've kind of gone back and forth, and I'm trying to, get better with it. I'm not anywhere near where I should be with that, but I do love the Lord. I do love, me feel blessed with the life He's given me, and certainly when it comes to retention, I am more aware of the relationship now than I was 885. It is now 885 days ago. And I become more aware of this because I know that retention, that celibacy, that keeping that seed in and nutrients in has now allowed me to go back to the nature I was. Remember, guys, I had said this long time ago in one of my earlier videos that the last time I felt this good and understanding this was back when I was, I don't know, 11 years old. And it's kind of funny how I remember a lot of those times, because those are the times that I didn't do any kind of releasing. I didn't even know what it was, actually, until I was probably 12, 13 years old, something like that. And that was a time where I kind of felt the closest to happiness as a kid. Not that I didn't have, happy times at times. I loved my family and different things like that. But I had gone through a lot of difficulties. They went through a lot of difficulties, my dad and mom. And so it was a tough situation, but I remember those times before I started to I didn't know what I was even doing, to be honest with you, at 12, 13 years old. But I figured it out as time went on. But the idea, guys, is that you're really still focused in this matrix, and you're all ego. So what you're doing by actually retaining, and you're keeping your seed as long as you can until you procreate, is following God's wishes. And this is why it's in the book. This is why talking about discharging is not a good thing. It actually makes you unclean for 7 days. So every time you discharge, the Bible talks about that you need to take a shower and you need to clean, because you're not really clean for 7 days. And this is the type of thing that I always kind of went back and forth with, because my relationship with the Lord, I could understand, this whole idea, because I was told in society, in so many, ways by doctors and, physicians and things like that, that you have to release. I mean, you're going to kill yourself if you don't release, right? It's going to create a lot of problems for you as time goes on. Well, I haven't seen those problems. I'm at 885 days, and I haven't seen those problems. And I've gotten excited, but I've used the Fountain of Youth exercises, and I had a comment, and I'll have to mention it tomorrow when I go over comments, but, the breathing in, breathing out, and that all of a sudden gets rid of the excitement 99% of the time, and you just have to kind of keep working with it and transmuting it as it goes back into your system. But what you're doing is you're moving more to the spirit. You're going from the ego to the spirit. And I think this is something that is important to realize, that you were born coming in with the spirit. You were not born with the ego drive. I mean, you learn the ego drive, in my opinion. I learned it, at least. The ego drive comes in when all of a sudden now everything around you is built towards you. Making money, gathering material things, getting people around you that are beautiful, making you better. All these things are ego driven. And this is something that Charles talked about in his messages, and I think he's very, very right about this. And so I want to shout out to Charles. Very good way to look at this, good perspective, a very spiritual perspective to look at. So as time has gone on, I've kind of moved away from the physical things in this world. Now, yes, I still have hobbies and I still do things, but I look at that totally differently as well. As I do religion, I mean, going to church is something that's important, but it's only because you're connecting with God and having a quiet place to do that. And so there's times that I used to go to church and would just sit there without no mass or anything like that, just to pray. But I could do that as home as well. And I could do that anywhere as well. And I can do that, at night as I'm meditating and things like that. So I think you have to continue to focus on the relationship you have with your Creator. It's not a relationship that deals with any particular type of church, any particular type of religion in some ways. You have to know that, you have been saved in many ways, from all of these things. And I think part of saving, and what Lord Jesus Christ has saved me from, is realizing all this stuff at an age where I can still enjoy things. At 60 some years old, 61, I can enjoy a lot of the things in life now because I finally decided to take that commitment. I still got to do that in some of the other areas of my life, like tithing and things like that. But I did do it in this area of retention and intercourse and trying to control that behavior that was, kind of devastating me as time went on. I felt a lot older. I felt a lot more infirm. I wasn't very strong. And now it's a whole different thing. I just feel like the energy's running through me. And as I said, we've noticed that with so many people around me who continue to stare. And I had that down the block today where I had a young woman who for some reason just did not like me. I'm not sure why. And all of a sudden she's waving and things like that. Just a very strange thing. And you notice it. I know what's the difference. And once again, those type of things are very flattering. But once again, it's a case where those are all ego driven. Having sex, intercourse, all these things are ego driven. What I'm really interested in getting back to closer to God. And I think getting back to as a child. And the Bible is so right about this as well. I mean, we are like children. And we don't live in this world. We live in the spiritual world. And the more we realize that, the more happier we are. I mean, I am so happy and I feel so powerful. I don't need any of these things anymore. And that's something that is good. And I hope that that's a feeling that all of you warriors get, because you can go out and do anything at this point if you have that feeling, because you know that you have that peace and that joy. I think joy is probably the word I'm looking for in your heart, because you know God's there. And God's going to be there. And then it doesn't mean you're not going to have problems, of course. You're going to have problems. You're going to have stress levels. But those have all gone down. Those have all changed because of the things that I'm doing. And so I will never stop this ever again. And no matter how long I end up living and God gives me that blessing to keep living, I'm going to enjoy this, because this is really the way life should be. And in my opinion, at least. And it goes back to how you entered this world as a young person. And unfortunately, we don't remember a lot of that because we've been kind of socialized. It's almost the same thing like if you're talking to, if your kids playing down in the block, and you have a diversity of kids, different types of colors and races and ethnicities, and kids don't notice this. Kids just notice that they have a friend, somebody they can play with, they can share things with. That's the way it should be. But what happens in our society is that we're basically socialized to see differences. And I think this is where it comes in the ego. The ego comes in. And as a result of that, we go down a real bad path where materialistic things are the only thing that's important. And as time goes on, we get so immersed into the ego that we don't see the spiritual side of things, and we lose that. But we can regain that by doing what you guys are doing right now. The more you do this, the more you'll find that the people around you, and this goes back to another comment that I believe, and maybe I have to go back and look and see who said it, but they're talking about that the image that women are looking at when they're attracted, maybe it's Charles too said this, is really God. And that could be very true. That could be very true. Maybe what they're seeing is God. And because women are very in tune, because of having children and being the person who's really kind of having those children, they're much more in tune to God. This is why you see, even in church and even things that you see, that a lot more women go than men, because they recognize that connection, especially because they've had children, or they just innately do that because of their nurturing nature. But the thing is that women recognize when they see this in someone else, and they see a man who has this type of energy level, they recognize him. So, all right, some good comments. We had some good quotes over the weekend. I'm going to kind of pull those out tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Guys, have a very blessed day. God bless each and one of you guys, and gals too. So I don't want to mention that we have a few young ladies who are subscribers as well now. So thank you so much. And if you have any comments, you may not always agree with things we're saying, but I'm trying to kind of give you a perspective. At least I have over the years that I've seen. And once again, I believe that we are all together in this battle, and that we have to continue to not only support each other, but recognize the evil that's within. And that I don't think any person, individual person, is evil. I do think they can be taken over by evil, the evil forces around them. And I think this is really real. All right, my friend. God bless you guys. Continue to battle, and every day is a new day to a wise warrior. Enjoy the day today, and God bless you guys, and continue to battle on.